I remember back in, I think it was like ninth or 10th grade for me, which would have been 98, 99, 2000, somewhere in that ballpark. There was a fad where kids were walking around with their pop collars. Maybe even been a senior. I can't remember. But they were all like, I'm so cool. And petty me still gets annoyed if my collar pops up on its own. I still think back to those little jerks. Gosh, I got some therapy to get through. Anyway, I just thought I would share that with you guys. 2023 has been a good year for me personally. I had some life-altering things go on last year, and guys, I made it out of the woods. It's not perfect, but every day is a little bit better than the day before, and that's what matters. I didn't start testing speakers again until around May, but since then I went back and I've counted. I've tested 45 speakers, and I probably tested more than that, but you just only have seen 45. I've got 5 or 6, I think, right now that I haven't gotten to yet, but I thought I would recap a little bit some of my favorites. This is going to be my personal favorite list, and if you were to see the list of everything that I've reviewed, you may choose some differently. You may wonder why I didn't choose X, Y, or Z. Just going to say up front, this is my personal subjective list. I've chosen some of these speakers for different reasons, but they are my reasons, and I will tell you why I chose them for said list. If you're interested in any additional information, I will have the full reviews on my website, or you can just search through my previous videos, check them out there. Additionally, if I happen to discuss anything that you can buy from Crutchfield, Amazon, Audio Advice, etc., I will have a affiliate link in the description below. If you're not interested in affiliate links, just Google it. You know what to do. So with that said, let's go ahead and kick things off. And by the way, this is in no particular order. The first one I'm going to talk about, the Neumi Silk 4, $150 per pair. I got these from the manufacturer a few months ago, and they're really a cool little speaker. They're about maybe yay size or so. They're not huge, and they're not the greatest speaker ever. They probably only get down to about 80 hertz or so in room, so you definitely need a subwoofer. But at $150 per pair, they pose a really good value, especially if you needed something like a small bookshelf speaker or a small surround speaker for your home theater. Next on the list is the Monoprice THX certified satellite speakers. And man, those things are super small. I got those from a viewer who sent them to me and just told me I could keep them. They retail for like $250, but they're also part of a 5.1 kit from Monoprice that includes a subwoofer, which I also reviewed, that does pretty well. And that kit is sometimes like $300 and sometimes $400. But if you can catch that kit for $300, buy it. I actually am thinking about buying that kit next year when I move into a new house and using it in my daughter's room. And that way, when she plays games and stuff, I'll set up a little surround sound setup. For $300, you really can't beat it. It's a great little speaker. It's a 4-inch coaxial speaker, goes down to about 80 hertz F3. You're absolutely going to need a subwoofer for it. Directivity on it is fantastic. Aims 30 degrees off axis is the best way to aim it. So set it up that way and you'll be good to go. It really has really good neutrality, especially considering the price. It has a small little dip around 1.6 kilohertz or so, but I don't think it's enough to worry about. And I'd rather it be maybe a dip than a peak that I can't really do anything about. So with that in mind, yeah, great value there. Thomann Swissonic A306, got this from the manufacturer, retails in the US for roughly the equivalent of about $350 to $370, but it is an EU product. It actually will ship from Germany from the manufacturer called Thomann, Thomann.net, Thomann.de, I don't know. I'll have a link in the description below. Really good powered active, because they're not the same thing, powered and active, powered monitor. Yeah, there we go. I'll get there eventually. Really great on-axis neutrality, really great directivity as well. So that means it responds well to equalization. This common thing that you're going to see here in my review. The radiation width is pretty nice. It's actually a little bit wider than I would have expected given the waveguide design, but overall, fantastic speaker. Really one that I recommend, especially for those of you in the European Union area. The Elac debut reference DBR62. Now, its retail price is typically $750 as of late, but you can not constantly, but very easily find them on sale for about $550 per pair. It is a 6.5-inch mid-woofer with a 1-inch, I believe, dome tweeter on the baffle. Ported design, somewhat large, maybe like yay big, like that or something like that. Overall, really good neutrality, but the top end does have a little bit of a lift, and I found that this speaker also works best towed out about 30 degrees. If you point it right at you, it's going to have a little bit of a boost in the top end. Now, if you've got a lot of furnishings in your room that will help absorb some of the sidewall reflections, then that'll help drop down that top end a little bit. Personally, I found it best aimed slightly off axis. When you get down to about 80 hertz, compression starts to set in, and that really to me is the weak factor of that particular speaker. So you will want a subwoofer if you plan to listen at higher output volumes. The Ascend Acoustics Sierra 1 V2 retails for about $9.99 per pair, also came direct from the manufacturer. The manufacturer actually targeted a smooth estimated in-room response and therefore gave up a little bit of linearity in the on-axis response. Not much, but a little bit. And in my opinion, it was the right choice because I find that in most cases, at least for my room where it's pretty reflective, the estimated in-room response lines up very, very well to what I hear. And in some cases, I feel like it maybe even lines up better than the direct on-axis sound. The radiation width of this speaker is about plus or minus 60 degrees, so it's kind of right in that pocket of where I like. I don't necessarily care for a speaker that's more narrow, and I like a speaker that's within about plus or minus 60 degrees horizontally. The compression and distortion on this speaker are probably the downfall in terms of overall use. You will want to use a subwoofer if you are planning to listening at high output volumes, and let's just say maybe like the mid 90 decibel range at 4 meters away. You're going to want a subwoofer to help alleviate some of that. But closer to the speaker, not really a problem. And overall, I really give it 2 thumbs up. The KEF LS50 Meta, I was loaned this speaker from Audio Advice. Retail is typically $1,600 per pair, but on sale right now for $9.99 per pair, I think it makes a really good option. I like the look of it. I like the really compact, not necessarily size, but design. So it is a 2-way speaker, coincident driver, mid-woofer, and then the tweeter inside of it, not a 3-way design like maybe some other speakers from KEF might be. And just the overall shape of the baffle, the aesthetic, I like it. The neutrality speaker is spot on, except there is a dip from about 2 to 4 kilohertz that kind of takes out some attack and some detail and maybe some dynamicism or apparent perceived dynamicism from the speaker. Now, it seems to me that it was targeted this way on purpose. This was a design choice that was made by KEF, but again, a little bit off for my personal taste. If you have equalization, you can boost that right up, no problem. And then you got a fantastic speaker. It is SPL limited, so you will want to use a subwoofer for higher output volumes, but I think that's kind of to be expected at a 5.25-inch midwoofer. Overall, I really do like that speaker. KEF R3 Meta, to me, represents a fantastic value as well. $2,200 per pair, newer design, incredible linearity, and incredible in-room neutrality. At the listening position, just a really smooth, overall great sounding speaker. Bass extension, a little bit not great when it's pulled away from the wall, but when you push it against the wall, it helps boost up that bass without sounding too boomy, because with this particular design, KEF engineered the ported combo port and the sealed enclosure to give you what you call an extended bass shelf response on the low end. And basically what that means is it starts to roll off like a standard sealed enclosure, but then it has a little bit of a kick at the bottom end to give you a little bit more output, maybe around 50 hertz or so. Now, it doesn't get much below that, but that little dip gives you a little bit more without sounding too boomy when it's placed near a wall. So placement is a good option for that speaker in this regard. It is somewhat narrow at about plus or minus 50 degrees, like most of KEF's designs that I tend to find they are about that way. But overall, it's a really good speaker. Compression is better on this than it is the LS50 Meta. It is a 3-way design, so that kind of makes sense. But in my opinion, you're probably still going to be best served by using a subwoofer because the in-room response below about 50 hertz just really isn't there. And also, I want to throw in, before I forget, The R3 Meta, like the LS50, is best aimed off axis a little bit. Anywhere from 10 to 20 degrees is going to be a sweet spot. Play around with that. The MoFi SourcePoint 8 at $27.50 per pair. I think, and this may be recency bias talking, but I think this is probably my favorite speaker of the year. And the reason I say that is because it has everything that I like. I don't necessarily like a glossy speaker. I will say that a finish looks good when it looks good, but personally speaking, I like maybe like a satin look or a wood grain look. That just, I prefer that. My personal choice. It looks wild on the front. It's got all sorts of angles, but that is a design consideration, and it just sounds really dang good. It has really good linearity. It's not perfectly smooth. There are some diffraction dips and peaks, but overall it's really good. And the estimated in-room response is also really good. It takes well to aiming like the LS50 Meta does, and you can position it pretty much wherever you need to, either pointed directly at you, which normally you wouldn't do for a coincident driver like the MoFi or even the KEF drivers. But you can also tow it out up to 30 degrees and it still sounds really, really good. It takes well to equalization, but you will want a subwoofer because of below about 50 hertz, maybe mid 50s. There's just not a lot of output below that range. That said, it still does have good compression and good dynamic range in that frequency band above about 50 hertz. The Dynaudio Special 40 retails $29.99 per pair. Now, this speaker is not a linear speaker in relation to some of the other speakers that I've talked about. So, the other speakers that I've talked about some of them are within like plus or minus 1.5 decibel, plus or minus 2 decibels. Now, the Dynaudio was within about plus or minus 3 decibels. So, that's still respectable. But there are some apparent design decisions that were made where there's a little bit of extra information at maybe 4 to 5 kilohertz. There's a dip between 1 to 2 kilohertz. Those things give it specific tonal characteristics that make it sound definitively different than other speakers, much in the same way that the KEF LS50 Meta has that dip in the 2 to 4 kilohertz region. That's a definitive sound difference that you will hear. With the Dyn, the thing that I like about it, despite its non-neutral overall profile, which a couple things I would have liked to have seen done. I would have liked that 4 to 5 kilohertz to be brought down some. That was the more offensive part to me. But with that aside, the bass output and the compression and dynamic range of the speaker are really, really good. I was able to really turn the speaker up at really high volumes and still enjoy it. There was not really any audible distortion that I would complain about. Nothing in the upper mid-range treble region that I could hear or that I would complain about, even at like 102 decibels at 10 feet away for the pair in my room. I also really like the wide radiation. It's about plus or minus 60 degrees. And as I said before, I really like that kind of radiation pattern. That does it for the wrap up. That's 2023. Those are my favorite, my personal best of. And you may be wondering why X, Y, or Z wasn't included. As I said earlier, this is just my subjective list. I could probably make a case for a lot of them, except for the FiO SP3. I'm still upset about that stupid speaker. PreSonus Eris 3.5 as well. 7 decibel dip in the mid-range is not acceptable. It's not, especially when it's a monitoring speaker or a sound monitoring speaker or a reference speaker. No, that doesn't fly. I can deal with some inaccuracies or variability in response, but 7 decibels dip in the mid-range? No. So that's why I didn't mention those two speakers, in case you were wondering. I gotta say that before I leave this, just being candid, I really appreciate everybody taking the time to watch these videos. What I expect will happen is video views are going to fall off in the new year because that always happens and people just don't really care about products anymore after the rush of the Christmas season has started. But I hope that you stick with me. I hope you continue to watch my videos and I hope you learn something from them. I really do. This is 100% a passion project of mine. I do make money off of it. I'm not going to talk about how much. It's not a lot, but I spend a whole lot of time doing this. And if I were in it for the money, guys, I would just go get a second job. It makes no sense for me to do this as much as I do. And I hope that you understand that this is truly a deeply rooted passion for me. I love playing with speakers. I love the analysis of it. I love getting to relay my thoughts, and I really love getting to share information and hearing that feedback from you all about, hey, you helped me with this thing, or you helped me with that thing. Like that's awesome. And I don't know if that sounds like an ego thing. I hope that it does. And I hope you understand that it's truly just, it's just cool to have that experience and that camaraderie with the community and with people you've never met. And I hope that, maybe I'm putting a positive influence out there in the world. That's why I didn't do a worst of video for 2023, even though that probably would have gotten a whole lot of views. But yeah, I'll leave that off to the side. 2024 should have some really cool stuff coming up. Pay attention for that and stick with me. Hope you'll learn something more. Hope we'll grow together, and maybe I'll see you at some audio event shows, maybe Expona or Florida Audio Fest or something along those lines this year. And if you happen to see me, make sure you stop and say, hey, I will talk to you all later. Have a Merry Christmas, a wonderful New Year's, and any other thing that you've got coming up that you're celebrating. Take time to reflect and be thankful, truly, because stuff can be gone in an instant. And there's a lot of things in my life that have happened and make me realize that. So just take care of yourselves, take care of your family. Have a good one. Talk to you later. Peace.